Oh boy, is this gonna be a video. Hello Chaos Gang and welcome back to my bullshit. My name is Sybil. Ali is not here today. If you want any of our socials, they will be linked down in the description below. I guess we'll start from the beginning. In the video that my girlfriend and I did reacting to homophobic comments, I mentioned that I wanted to do a series on rights that the LGBTQ+ community has and how we got them, rights that we're still fighting for, and possibly going into what some other countries go through, because I've had a lot of people commenting, asking me to talk about some of the laws in their countries. And it all stemmed from this really stupid comment I got. I quite literally thought this person was cis and straight based on the fucking comment, like it was that stupid that I thought it would have to be somebody who has nothing to do with the LGBTQ+ community to even think that way. No, it's not okay to bully no matter what. There's not a power structure. There is no system. Do unto others how you'd like to be done to you. And it doesn't matter how rude they're being or how wrong they seem. You don't get to be a bully. That being said, they're a piece of shit in the world. You need to ignore them, or if in need, use their logic against them. Now, if you saw the video where my girlfriend and I reacted to homophobic hate comments, we already went off on a different comment about how you cannot tell queer people that are facing homophobia to be the bigger person. It's stupid. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on that topic, you can check out the other video. But what really got me about this comment was power structure and system, and how this person says there is none of those. So I actually responded to this person with like 7 different examples, but instead of being like, oh, thank you for the sources, thank you for educating me, they doubled down and then said, you're mean and you're humiliating me, and then deleted their YouTube channel that had like 6 subscribers. So whatever. Some people will refuse to learn even when those people are supposed to be standing up for the other people in their community. So that's what inspired this series of videos I wanted to do. And I was originally going to start this series with the video about the rights that we do have and how we achieved them. But there is so much anti-LGBTQ+ legislation happening right now that it felt wrong not to film this and get this out first. You've probably heard of some of the ones I'm going to talk about today. There is so much more than these. There's so much more than I can get into one video. So if you enjoyed this video and you want me to make more going over some of the other states and other legislation that they're trying to impose, please like the video and comment telling me that you want that. This video took a lot of work and also just like emotionally draining. So if this is a series you want where I go over what's happening in a bunch of other states and a bunch of other laws that are currently trying to be imposed, please let me know, and please support this video so I know that you want that. With all that being said, let me give you a quick disclaimer before we get into this video. These are the bills and legislation as of the day I researched this, as of the day that I am filming this. This video may take me a couple days to edit and upload. People are always trying to put amendments on bills. People are always trying to change certain things about them. Bills end up being passed, bills end up being denied. So depending on when you clicked on this video, whether it's right after I post it or whether it's a month from now, please keep in mind when you are watching this. But I just want to say that because I know somebody will click on this video 2 months from now and might be like, oh, that was passed, why didn't you mention that? Or, oh, there was amendment, why didn't you mention that? It's probably because it happened after I did the research and recording of this video. All right, with all of that being said, let's get into this. I do have an outline that I made on a Google Doc, and that's what I'll be referring to on my phone because this is 9 pages of information and I want to make sure I don't miss anything or put it in too awkward of a spot. So the first piece of legislation we're going to be talking about is the Florida's Don't Say Gay bill. Now, a lot of you have probably heard about this. What it's actually called is Parental Rights and Education Bill. So this bill contains more than what we're going to talk about today, so just keep that in mind. But the reason people have deemed it the Don't Say Gay bill is because of a certain bit that's in this bill. Now, the 2 quotes I'm going to read you are directly from the bill as it stands as I record this. So in the summary of the bill at the beginning, it says, prohibiting classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels or in a specified manner. Now later on in the bill, where things get a little bit more detailed, is where this next quote is pulled from. Sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. For anybody who is not aware, this bill, if passed, would go into effect July 1st of 2022. Please note how this is worded. In kindergarten through grade 3, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. Focus on the or in that sentence because that's going to be a big piece of what we talk about in a little bit. But I want to start with the part that says sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3. So you might be like, Sybil, that makes sense. I didn't know what sexuality was when I was in kindergarten. Like, why would we talk about that? Which kind of brings me to my first point, which is that it's not a problem. People don't just go into kindergarten classes and start asking 5-year-olds if they're lesbians. So how would this actually affect the LGBTQ+ community if we're not even having those discussions? Well, Pay attention to the fact that this world is built for heterosexuality. There's mommy and daddy books in every little kid's classroom that you can think of. The examples they use in their schoolwork and their coursework have to do with mommy and daddy. One thing to think about is like, what would happen if a kid brought a daddy and daddy book from their house? Maybe they have two fathers, so their dads gave them this piece of education to read that relates more to them and their situation. Well, unfortunately, because it's a gay couple, it's now a discussion of sexuality. So we're not looking at the banning of like in-depth conversations about sexuality and gender to kindergarteners. We're thinking about the banning of just queer people existing in those spaces. And I think it's funny because this legislation technically could get a little kid in trouble for bringing a daddy and daddy book, yet you know mommy and daddy books are already in those situations. So it's only a problem when it comes to queer parents. But to put that a little bit more in perspective, I wanted to bring in a queer parent's perspective. So this quote that I'm about to read you is from an article of two dads that are fearing this new bill being passed. Imagine for a moment that you're a bright-eyed, joyful, innocent 5-year-old girl who only knows the world as a loving place. You're starting your first day of school and you're excited. You're energetic. Probably a little nervous. Your new classmates are taking turns sharing about their summer vacations. One of your classmates talk about how his mom and dad took him to the Grand Canyon. The teacher responds, "Oh, that sounds wonderful. What was your favorite part about the trip?" Then your turn comes. You can barely contain yourself as you blurt out, "My daddies took me to Disney World." The class goes silent. The teacher looks at you uncomfortably. After a long pause, she says, "Oh well, let's move on to the next student." You're confused, everyone is looking at you. You don't know why, but you feel like you did something wrong, and for the first time, the world suddenly seems a little darker. I think that is such a powerful example of how this bill could really affect K through 3rd grade kids. You can't even mention your parents because then you would be mentioning sexuality within the class. Because you're not mentioning sexuality when it's heterosexual people, but when it's gay people, you're suddenly mentioning sexuality. So not only is this like problematic for the child and the parents, but also it creates a stigma around queer people that we're so bad and other that we can't even be mentioned. When in reality, we're supposed to be striving for the normalization. It shouldn't be a second thought if a kid says, "my two dads." Kids who may have never had an experience with that might ask a question. They might be like, "How do you have two dads?" And I think if a teacher chooses to answer that in a very innocent way, that should be fine. The idea that it can't be brought up because it's against school board policy is extremely othering. And I think it's funny because one of the Republican senators, but he tried to say that, "Oh, this won't happen. That won't happen. Kids can totally talk about their two dads, you know, like that won't happen." Then how come the bill is written in such an unclear way that there is no protections for those kids to talk about their parents? How come this bill has no wording that shows protection for kids who want to read books about their two dads? How come there is no protection for the things that you are saying won't happen? Imagine you get a brand new car and I'm like, "Oh, cool, that's awesome. Your car's not going to get hit with another car because I'm not going to hit your car with my car." Just because I say I wouldn't do it, or just because I say it's not gonna happen, doesn't mean that somebody else isn't gonna hit your car. Just because this senator, just because he wants to say, "That's not gonna happen," doesn't mean that it's not actually gonna happen because the bill is not written with protections for kids with queer parents. It is written to say that it prohibits the discussion of sexuality in K through 3rd, which includes queer parents. And if you've ever faced homophobia, you know people go out of their way to be homophobic. I have people click on my videos that says lesbian in the title to come and comment a slur, to tell me that I'm going to hell. Homophobic people do the most to be homophobic and to other you. And sometimes those people are our teachers. Sometimes those people are the adults in our life. And I think it's ridiculous to give them this power and then expect homophobic people not to use it. Interesting. So now we're going to get into the next bit, which is where I said to focus on the or. So this bill does not just affect K through 3rd. And a lot of lawmakers that are in favor of this bill are trying to disguise it and make it out to be like it will only affect K through 3rd, when nowhere in the bill does it state that it only affects K through 3rd or primary schools because of the or that's in this bill. And it's very sneaky. First of all, I also want to throw out the fact that there are rural towns where their schools are K through 12, meaning kindergarten through 12th grade are in the same school. So even if this bill was just focused on primary schools, what about schools like that? Where's the cutoff? Because this bill doesn't affect certain grades. It prohibits in K through 3rd, but then it goes on to say, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. Once again, if you're reading that and it sounds really murky and unclear, it is. And I feel like that's heavily on purpose by these lawmakers. The idea of age appropriate is so completely subjective. And it's all left up to the discretion of the adults that are in these schools and that are in these children's lives. And when I say children, I don't just mean little kids anymore. We're talking 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders, because they're still in school and they're still in the Florida school systems. So when we think of this subjective nature of age appropriate, I want to give you an example. I've had so many people tell me in my life that the discussion of LGBTQ+ topics are not appropriate in general. There are people out there who genuinely think the topic of sexuality and gender is inappropriate in any circumstance. So all it takes is one or two of these people being in a school and seeing it as completely inappropriate to make these students' lives hell. You may be like, but it says in state accordance, but we don't know what that means. Once again, murky, unclear. I want to talk about how this limits the protection of queer kids in schools. First of all, I know many of us growing up had a teacher in a school that we felt was a safe place to go talk to, that we felt closer to than any other adult in that building. I feel like that's a pretty common experience. Now imagine even going to that teacher, even if they were accepting of queer kids, even if they were happy to talk with you about it. If another teacher heard about this or a student overheard this, imagine if their subjective opinion is that it is not age appropriate, so therefore go and get that teacher in trouble as well as that student. It's removing protections in trusted adults in students' lives, so that's already shitty. Also, think about guidance counselors. Say there's a student and their parents are homophobic, and so they try to talk to their guidance counselor to find routes to help them, but it's age inappropriate conversations, and it cuts off a pipeline of resources that this student could have to help themselves just because they are queer. A national study done by the Trevor Project in 2021 shows that 42% of LGBTQ+ kids seriously considered suicide in the last year. This includes more than half of transgender youth. 94% of LGBTQ+ youth reported that recent politics negatively impacted their mental health. On a video where we're talking about some of these things. 94%. I'm not a youth anymore, but you could definitely lump me in there, because this is bullshit. LGBTQ youth who had access to spaces that affirmed their sexual orientation and gender identity reported lower rates of attempting suicide. Yet lawmakers are sitting here trying to remove school as a safe place for these people. 48% of LGBTQ youth reported they wanted counseling from a mental health professional, but were unable to receive it in the past year. Now, of course, there are many reasons people don't have access to mental health counseling, but your school being homophobic should not be one of those reasons, especially statewide. This is for Florida state. Imagine wanting to go to your counselor to find what resources you could find for your mental health, and they said, sorry, bud, this is an age-appropriate conversation because it has to do with your sexuality, and that is my subjective opinion. So therefore, I will either deny you, or if you push it, I will get you in trouble with the school. We're supposed to be giving protection to LGBTQ+ kids, not taking it away. We're supposed to be giving resources to save lives. Also, continuing with this, school is such a safe place for so many LGBTQ+ kids who do not have that safe space at home. Many people have homophobic family or even violently homophobic family. So then when they're at school and they're with their friends, they can be themselves. They can talk to their friends about sexuality and gender and who they are, and their friends can use their correct pronouns, and their friends can use their preferred names, and it gives them an option for a safe place. And of course, I don't think these friends are gonna rat them out. But you know who will? People who overhear it and are already homophobic or just wanna bully the queer kid. This just opens another line for discrimination. The homophobic kid hears the queer kid talking to their friends about being a lesbian. Suddenly he can go, hey teacher, they're talking about being queer. I don't really think that's age appropriate, do you? And if that teacher is homophobic, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna go, oh my gosh, you're right. Thank you for letting me know. You are not just allowing kids to discriminate against LGBTQ youth now, you are allowing the adults in the spaces that are supposed to be safe to discriminate against them. I also want to touch on LGBTQ+ safe sex. I had my first health class when I was in the 5th grade. Now, subjectively, you might think that was too young and age inappropriate, Or you might think, yeah, that's a good age to start learning about those things. I had another health class in 8th grade where somebody literally wrote, "What about gay sex?" on a slip in the anonymous box, and the teacher pulled it out and went, none of you are gonna need that. And then even my senior year health class with one of my favorite teachers I have ever had, so awesome, such an ally, still couldn't talk about it. You have so much LGBTQ plus youth that have no idea about the STD rates in their side of the community, that have no idea what safe sex protections are available to them. If I said the word dental dam right now, there are so many people who are gonna have to Google that to know what it is. And that's ridiculous because it's estimated that 1 in 10 people are LGBTQ plus in one way or another. So you have 1 in 10 people not getting the actual sex education that they need. You're telling me I can have a course where I have to fill out the 11 steps of putting on a condom and disposing of it, but you can't tell us what a dental dam is? So what's age inappropriate about those conversations? Because we can talk about safe sex as long as it's straight kids, but we can't talk about it if it's queer kids. But we're talking about sex in both of those instances. So why is this one age inappropriate? Even for states that don't have this bill, this is already a problem, but this bill is just inviting more reasons to why we can't talk about these things in school. If I seem a little heated, it's because I fucking am. This also just encourages other states to pass similar bills. And you might be like, no, you're making that up. Wait, what? There's 15 states currently trying to pass either the same or extremely similar bills to this. 15 other states currently. This just leads to the discrimination and othering of LGBTQ plus people more than it already is. But now you're teaching kindergartners to do that. You're teaching kindergartners that we can't say daddy and daddy or mommy and mommy. In summary, the truth of this bill is that it is made for homophobic people. Those are the people that are gonna get the most leverage from it. Those are the people that are gonna get the most power from it. This bill is made for the people who don't wanna hear a student say, well, my 2 dads. This is a bill that are made for people who want to deny LGBTQ plus kids proper health and discussions because they don't want to hear it or because they don't want to talk about it, when these kids are the ones that need it. I wrote this in the outline. It says they might as well call it parental right and education, but only for cis heterosexual parents that would kick their child out for being queer bill. You can't tell me I'm wrong. You can't tell me I'm fucking wrong, dude.
You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong? Am I wrong?
It's ridiculous. Like, I think we could all agree it would be weird for a teacher to go into a class of 2nd graders and start talking about sex to them, but that would be weird regardless of straight or gay. That's just weird and pervy, regardless of whose sex it is. It would be weird regardless for a 2nd grade teacher to just start talking about genitals to children, regardless of whether they're talking about a trans person or a cis person. You know that this is not the sexuality and gender conversations you're talking about protecting in this bill. You're talking about not wanting to hear about daddy and daddy. Sexuality can be as innocent as who you're holding hands with. Sexuality can be as innocent as who your parents are. Sexuality can be as innocent as that first crush feeling. Stop treating queer people like they are nothing but sex and what's in their pants. It's homophobic in itself that lawmakers deem us as these weirdos that can't be talked about and have to be othered by fucking children. And if anything, this bill feels like backlash because the younger generation is becoming more accepting. It feels like they want to reteach the hate that we're desperately trying to get rid of. All right, that was quite a bit of talking. I'm gonna pause this, get some drinks of water. I'll be back in a second. And we're gonna talk about the second one that Florida's doing. Go Florida! We're back to talk about some of the other ones. These ones are a little more self-explanatory. I feel like with that last one, I had to give a lot of examples of how this really can affect people in real life because it's so murky and unclear in the writing. But these next ones are crystal fucking clear. So the second one we're gonna be talking about is Florida's Stop Woke Act. Yes, it is literally WOKE, and what that stands for is Stop the Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees. Now, before we get into this, I want to explain to you what the bill is because it targets much more than just LGBTQ plus kids. This bill bans discussion on systemic racism, Black history, LGBTQ plus issues, discrimination, history, and other concepts relating to discrimination other minorities face. So due to the topic of this video, I will mostly be focusing on the LGBTQ plus side of things, but I just want to repeat that to you. Banning the history and discussions of discrimination and issues related to minorities in this country, Black history, Native history, LGBTQ plus history, and many more. Why might they be doing this, you may ask? Well, I'll let the governor of Florida tell you why. This is a direct quote from Ron DeSantis. I apologize if I said that wrong. Not to him, to you guys. We won't allow Florida tax dollars to be spent teaching kids to hate our country or to hate each other. We also have a responsibility to ensure that parents have the means to vindicate their rights when it comes to enforcing safe standards. Finally, we must protect Florida workers against the hostile work environment that is created when large corporations force their employees to endure CRT-inspired training and indoctrination. Did you almost vomit hearing that? Because I almost vomited reading that. First of all, teaching us not to hate each other. Buddy, go look at your Don't Say Gay bill that you're trying to pass right now. You are literally breeding kids that are going to bully and hate LGBTQ plus kids. But I assume we're not people to you. So I feel like a lot of the issues with the Stop Woke Act are very self-explanatory. It is a problem to not teach history. Everybody knows a fucking saying that goes along the lines of, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. Also, just the complete erasure of cultures and identities and history and suffering that so many people have gone through in this country just so kids won't be like, I hate our country. Damn. Really, because this bill makes me hate our country more. The idea that you're scared to fucking tell people what we did as a country, you won't teach that because you're scared people will be upset about it. No fucking shit, people are gonna be upset about it, but it still needs to be fucking taught. People still need to know the truth. This idea of breeding nationalism is disgusting. People are allowed to form their own opinions based on research and education. And when you take away that research and education, you are the asshole. Oh my God, it's like that Reddit r/am I the asshole, but it's with fucking Ron. Yeah, Ron, you are the fucking asshole. God. But when it comes to LGBTQ plus people in general, I think we can safely say that banning the talks of discrimination and the issues we face once again only leaves more room for discrimination and ignorance. You have people that think LGBTQ plus people are making up all these issues and all this discrimination because you won't teach them the history of what we've been through in this country. Are you gonna tell them that gay marriage was only legalized in 2015? Are you gonna tell them about Stonewall? No, you're fucking not. Because it's easier to pretend like it didn't happen. But what that does is place the hurt on LGBTQ plus people from one, not allowing them to know their own history, to the idea that they can't talk about the discrimination and issues they face in school, which is a place where you're supposed to breed education. But you're gonna stop that, right? Not a place for education, no, not here. And you're gonna let other kids not understand it either, so when they bully and other the queer kids because of your Don't Say Gay bill, they're also not gonna know about the discrimination that we've already faced, and just add a whole new generation of it. Not to mention that the way people change is through education. I've had people comment on my videos that they used to be homophobic, but through seeing my videos, they realized how bad it actually is and why they don't want to contribute to that. Yet you're creating a space to contribute to it because you're refusing to tell people. And like, obviously that goes for much more than just the LGBTQ plus community with this bill. Like that fits so many different communities. It's aggravating. I'm aggravated, Florida. But the worst thing is once again, there's other states trying to implement bills just like this now. Thanks, Florida. Let's go to the third Florida bill. And the reason I focused on these three is because they're like the holy trinity of what's going on right now. There are so many different states trying to pass either some of these or similar bills to these or all fucking three. So explaining them through Florida feels the easiest because we're also focused on Florida right now. So you've probably heard about some of these and it's easier to explain it when you've already heard a little bit of a gist. Florida's individual freedom bill, unless you're trans. That last part's not on the bill, but it should be. Florida is also working to pass a bill along with these two entitled Individual Freedom Bill, which would mandate students to be separated by sex and not gender for sports and sex education. First of all, freedom bill, you're stripping freedom right fucking there. Right there, you're fucking stripping freedom. It is not freeing to be labeled for the rest of your life based on what the doctor said when they pulled you out of your mom's vagina. That is not freeing. That is actually what we call restricting. You can't make this shit up, bro. You can't fucking make it up. Ostracizing trans kids and putting them in the wrong gendered groups is only gonna make things 20 times fucking worse. First of all, I already think it's weird to separate kids by gender in general for sexual education. I don't think we should be separating kids at all with that. I think both sides should be learning about what the other side goes through. Like, that's just more education for everyone and also less money because you don't have to split up the classes anyways. I don't know. I feel like that's not just me, right? Like, everybody should learn about sex education for both sides. Like, it's important. They're already separating them, okay. So you're gonna take a trans kid and pointedly stick them in a sexual education class. That just sounds like breeding more hate to me, making it harder on them, ostracizing them from the other kids again. I want to read you a quote from this article that I found of a trans woman speaking about this. Going to do stuff like sex ed and the physical classes they put in there, it is unnecessarily separates trans kids and makes them uncomfortable, Gray said during a Monday Zoom call. If you're a trans girl and then go to a class of cisgendered boys and sit there, the amount of ridicule and the amount of just sheer embarrassment that would be put on a child is unimaginable. I know because I was that child myself. A trans person who's been through that experience, who's faced the ridicule, who's faced the embarrassment, who had to endure all of that, all at the hands of adults placing them into situations where they will get bullied, where they will feel uncomfortable, purposefully doing that to a child. That's just disgusting to me. All I can say is that it is like crystal fucking clear that Florida has a problem with LGBTQ plus people, and especially LGBTQ plus youth, because there are 3 bills targeting LGBTQ plus youth right now. And this is only the 3 I know of. Like, I'm gonna be honest, there could possibly be more, because there are states right now with like 10 anti-LGBTQ plus bills. Like, it's fucking crazy right now. When I said that there's a lot more than just this, I was not fucking bullshitting. It is happening everywhere. There is like a wave going on. So I'm gonna tell you about a couple quick other bills. I'm not gonna go as in depth with them, just because this video is getting very long and it has been a lot of work to research all of this and also mental strain to think about it so much. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, please like it, please comment that you want me to do a second part, and I will go more in depth on other bills happening in other states. But just as a little taste of what I mean, Arizona is currently trying to ban books that mention sex, including things like The Great Gatsby. The thing is though, this bill would also affect books mentioning homosexuality. So that means banning books in schools that, mention homosexuality. Thanks, Arizona. Very cool. Don't worry though, Arizona's got some more going on. God damn it, I fucking hate it here. Of course, they have a bill that would prohibit trans girls from playing sports on girl teams. Are we surprised? No, because this is going on in almost every fucking state. There is also a new proposal that would put doctors in jail for helping kids medically transition. If the kid is under age 15, they could go to jail for 17 years. And treatments to kids under 18 but over 15 could still be 5 years. It's not up to lawmakers to decide what age a child should be able to transition. Especially when doctors have shown time and time again that it is best for trans kids and trans people in general to transition in whatever way is going to affirm themselves. Obviously, nobody has to medically transition to be valid, but doctors show that for people that want to medically transition, it is an improvement to their mental health. But for some reason, lawmakers feel like they know more than fucking doctors and want to put doctors in prison for helping LGBTQ plus people feel affirmed in their gender and feel mentally stable? Very cool, Arizona. Woo! Popping over to good old Tennessee. They want to ban textbooks that would promote, normalize, support, or address LGBT issues or lifestyles. What does that kind of sound like? Kind of sounds like the woke act. Yeah, kind of does, doesn't it? It's almost like it's a trickle-down effect. Are you starting to see the problem? Are you? Is anybody starting to see the problem? Am I the only one? Oh my fucking god. Missouri wants to prohibit changing your sex on your birth certificate. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, in some states, it is legal for a trans person to change the sex on their birth certificate. Now, what's the big problem with this? Well, first of all, like, changing your birth certificate to match your gender, it can be very affirming and validating and just feel good to know that your birth certificate says your gender. But also, it keeps you from being forcibly outed all the fucking time. I'm gonna give an example. Let's say we have a trans guy. I don't know why I pictured him just like standing on my hand. He has had his government ID changed to say that he is a man. He passes in public as a man. Well, in a lot of states, you have to have a lot of things to change your ID to that new state. Social security numbers, past IDs, and a lot of the time, a birth certificate. Now imagine going into a government building where these things are highly private, meaning like your social security number, your birth certificate, your ID. You don't want people to get a hold of those things, right? And you hand them, you know, your social security number, you hand them your ID, which says you're a guy, and then you hand them your birth certificate, but your birth certificate says female. The desk worker might have no fucking idea what's happening, and none of the ways that this could play out are good, but best case scenario still being bad, best case scenario, this person has to forcibly come out and say, hey, I'm trans, that's my birth certificate, everything else has been changed though, so that's why these two things don't match. And best case scenario, that person working the desk understands and is like, oh, totally get it, understood. They still had to forcibly come out, which is shitty, but she understands. Worst case scenario, this person doesn't know what the fuck this guy is talking about and now has security over. The best case scenario is being forcibly outed, which is a terrible scenario. And the worst case scenario is that you have to fucking explain to security and police why you have your own birth certificate just because it's not marked the same as your other things, like your ID. Do you see the problem? Anyways, so that's Missouri. Missouri has a ton going on right now, by the way. That's just the only one I pulled for this. Oh my god, I can't, this feels fake. Like, this feels like a fucking fever dream. Texas is currently checking the parents of trans kids for child abuse and child neglect. Why, you may be asking? Because their child is trans. That's right, Texas is starting to fucking check parents for child abuse if they support their trans child and have a trans child. Apparently, you're a fucking abuser now, or at least assumed to be. Since when is supporting your child a reason to suspect child abuse? It's almost like you're actually just a fucking transphobic piece of shit and you don't care about these children. You don't care, because if you did, you would fucking know that transitioning is the best thing for trans kids. Oh my fucking god. Not to mention that in the past 10 months, count them with me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, there have been about 40 fucking anti-trans legislation brought up in Texas alone. What the fuck? I can't even get into it. This video is so long. I'm pissed. Like I said, there's so much fucking happening right now in the United States. It is not just the states I listed. It is actually a lot more. So if you liked this video, please like it. Please comment letting me know you want a second one. But thank you guys so much for watching. Just to remind you of what I said at the beginning, by the time this is posted, it'll be a couple days from when I recorded it. Some things may be changed, some amendments may have been made, I don't know. So please just keep that in mind. If you're like, wait a second, but I just saw that this bill was like completely passed. Or wait, I saw that it had this amendment that changed this thing. Just know that it could be different in a couple days when I post this. It could be different 3 months from now when you finally find this video and decide to watch it. So if you want any of my socials, they will be down in the description below. I use my Instagram story a lot to update when videos are coming out, the progress of videos I'm working on, and stuff like that. So if you're interested, follow me on Instagram there. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video educated somebody who wasn't aware. And if you are of age to vote, please remember that your vote does always count. Something is always more than nothing. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, let me know if you want more of this. I usually end these videos in a silly way, but I'm kind of racking my brain for a silly thing to do right now. If I take this box of my Magic the Gathering sleeves and I put it against the screen like this, it looks like I said, bye! Also, fuck you, Ron, Florida governor, fucking dipshit.